Hey everyone, it's Mace1370. Before we get into the video today, we're going to do the Leif pack giveaway. I have the URL for the most recent video loaded up here. I'm going to filter duplicate users and grab the comments. Looks like there's 50 total. Here we go. Okay, Edwin Mitchell, congratulations. I'll be reaching out to you over Discord with your Leif pack. Okay, so today we're going to go over how to build Tywin and also do a little showcase for him. I was super excited to pull this hero a few weeks ago on Galaxy Summons. This is the first time that I have pulled a hero that is not only meta, but one that I really wanted from Galaxy Summons, so that was very exciting. I think there's a couple different ways that Tywin can be built. One is the way I have him built, which is tanky and fast. I think you can also build him as a bruiser, that is an option. He used to be built on counter set before his buffs by a few people, and that was decent, but I think he is more effective as a thick knight that goes quickly and has effectiveness. So with that in mind, I built him with lots of HP. He has okay defense. I would like this to be a little higher. I'd be okay sacrificing some HP to raise his defense up a bit. I'd say this is the bare minimum amount of defense that I want. In terms of his speed, I speed tuned him to be as fast as possible while going behind Alencia. I often draft her with him so that she can strip off immunity from the enemy team, and with my gear I was able to get her up to around 216 and still have the tankiness and offensive stats I wanted, so then I just slowed him down to around 208 so that he would go right after her. For this build I ignored critical hit chance and critical hit damage. If you're going the bruiser build you would focus more on these stats. And then I wanted at least 100 effectiveness. Obviously more is better. A lot of Ruels and Dianes are running around with 150 plus, so the more of this you can get, the better. I would like to get this up to about 150 and maintain, these other stats. We can take a quick look at his gear, just to show you, the kind of rolls that I went with to get this build. Most of the pieces are around 60 points, I think, but and obviously the right side of gear is not quite at the 60 point level for some of them, but on the left side they're all at about 60 points. I think the weapon is at 58 or so. In terms of the artifacts that you want to run them on, I've tried a variety of different things. Right now I'm trying Holy Sacrifice, even though it's not maxed. Has yet to bite me, but we'll see. I think there are multiple alternatives that you can put him on though. Holy Sacrifice is a good choice because he's such a high value target because of his S3. People will try to kill him quickly, and if you have Holy Sack on him and he comes back, that is just such a huge tempo swing. Oftentimes people will use like Rylet's S3 and other abilities like that are huge damage to get him down, and then he comes back, and not only is he back, but he has a thick barrier, and all of their major damage abilities are on cooldown, so he's able to do his job. So I think Holy Sack is definitely a good choice on him, but it's not the only choice. I think you could run Adamant Shield on him. Hypothetically he could hold Aureus, but I think because you want to build him with so much effectiveness, it's hard for him to reach the stats that you would want with Aureus. And also, like I said earlier, he's kind of a high value target, so Aureus doesn't really help him at all, and if they're not going for the rest of your team, what good is Aureus doing? So I probably wouldn't put Aureus on him, but he is a knight, so he could hold that theoretically. Elbrus Ritual Sword is another great choice for Tywin. Especially if you bring him into AoE teams. He does get focused, like I said, but if you bring him into AoE teams, this Elbrus is going to be popping off all the time, and because his S1 removes souls from the enemy, you're going to basically deny them the ability to soul burn for the entire fight. So those are the main artifacts that I was considering running on him. I'm just running through my list here to see if there's anything else that I could think about. I think those are the main ones. But yeah, so far I'm liking Holy Sack. Putting him on Adamant Shield wasn't horrible either, just because I tend to draft him as kind of like a secondary support. You bring your Aureus holder, and then like sometimes you'll bring Tywin. So he's not something that you're bringing to every fight, compared to something like FCC or one of those like tanky knights that is really just there for damage mitigation. So yeah, that's his build. I will be plus 15ing him. I think it does make a difference to plus 15 the units you use in RTA a lot. We're getting more molas now, so that's also more realistic. If you are squished on molas, you can basically do what I did here until I get more. I'll leave it at this. But you're basically grabbing the effect chance on his S3, you're grabbing all of his skill 2, and then the effect chance on his S1, he'll do his job. He'll just do a little bit less damage. He does have a couple imprints here, but so that's how I have him built. I can show you the Alencia really fast, just so you can get an idea of how I'm speed tuning that. So she was thicker before, but like I said, I've sped her up. I've had to drop her crit damage and her health a little bit to do that. It's the sacrifice you make. You know, you can obviously get better stats with a slower Alencia. Also, it really helps if you have imprints, which I do not have, unfortunately. But this is, I think, a pretty decent build for her. She's able to go first, and she, can strip with her S3 and really set him up. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple example matches using ML Tywin. Okay, so now that I have Ambitious Tywin, hard to justify banning him, especially since I'm trying to showcase him here. So I banned Falconer Clury just to see how that feels. She's a really strong unit and she can break through a lot of bruiser teams, so it means I don't get access to her either. The opponent had, I guess, the same idea. Also banned Clury. And then first picks Fallen Cecilia, which is a nice, opening pick. Keeps you open and gives you nice damage mitigation. It indicates to me that they're probably going to do a bruiser team, so I take Last Rider Crow. He can be, really good against bruisers. Makes them not want to pick AoE heroes, and also, gives you AoE damage yourself and damage mitigation, etc. And then I also take Adventurer Ras because he's one of my Aureus holders. I like taking Knights early; it leaves you open. The opponent takes Dain and Spectre Tenebria, which is kind of a scary combo because attack buff on Spec Tenny is, a formidable force. But the opponent is really committed to a high buff, strategy here with Fallen Cecilia and her shields and Dain and her attack and crit resistance buff. So to me, this opens the opponent up to Basar, and he only has a couple picks left, so you can still counterpick the Basar, but I think Basar is really strong here. And then I take Ambitious Tywin. The opponent doesn't have an immunity buffer yet, and I also have a strip with Basar as well. So I think Ambitious Tywin should work well here. Basar can, push back and stun the Spectre Tenebria. Ambitious Tywin can slow and stun her, so I'm planning on mitigating her, basically by controlling her with these heroes, rather than killing her quickly. Using that, crowd control to let Last Rider crowd just, S3 a few times and get rid of her. The opponent takes Remnant Violet, a strong single target damage dealer, but then also takes Ravi, who I don't know is really a great pick here. I think maybe they thought the battle would be going for a long, duration, and Ravi does scale well into the late game, so maybe that's why they took Ravi, but, I have an immunity buffer with Last Rider Crow. I have a stunner with Tywin. And then Last Rider Crow also gets, his cooldown reduced when Ravi S3s. Either way, I took Seaside Bologna here to counter Ravi. And I can't remember what artifact my Tywin's on in this fight. But I think I decided to ban the Remnant Violet here. I didn't want my Basar getting sniped. He's actually not that fast. I have him built pretty tanky. I wasn't sure if Basar would make it through or not, but, if I didn't ban the Violet and then he just got one shot, that would be devastating for me.
If I must fight.
So I do get first turn with my Adventurer Ras here. And the Dain is right behind him, so that's a pretty fast Dain. I think my Ras is like 235 or something like that. I am able to get up defense buff right away, but Dain cuts right behind, and luckily my Basar is speed tuned to come next so that the opponent really can't buff here, since Basar would just strip them. And even if they don't buff, I get to put up buff block, which will deny them another turn, and I get the stun on Dain, so this really prevents Dain from really doing much at all here. I'm able to S3 with Last Rider Crow, and I'm just going to start, the slow damage. You can see it takes off like a third of Spec Tenny's health. I've been experimenting with him on Adamant, Shield versus versus Portrait. I think they're both good. I have him on Adamant Shield right now. I pop off the skill 3 with Ambitious Tywin, which is just crippling for the opponent. It slows the majority of the team, stuns everyone other than Dain as well. So a huge amount of momentum for me. I could have burned my Adventurer Ras here. I decided not to just because I don't have high damage units really. So I felt like those souls were better used for Tywin or Last Rider Crow. So now I'm just going to focus into the Diane and try to get rid of her before she's able to, you know, cleanse off some of these debuffs. Speaking as a Diane user, getting buff block up on everyone is so crippling, because if you use your S2 to get rid of it, it doesn't put shields on anyone, so it's, you know, you're taking a whole turn and a cooldown to get rid of buff block. At best, you know, with all these other debuffs, who knows what you cleanse. So Ravi is able to S3 here, but a couple of my units have immunity, and I have Ambitious Tywin as well. And it resets, you know, lowers the cooldown, doesn't reset, it lowers the cooldown on my Last Rider Crow. So I feel like Ravi's not really super effective in this fight. Diane does go down. And you can see how, you know, devastating the high effectiveness is on Tywin. You know, in addition to his stuns and his slows, his S1 provokes, and it has a really high chance of doing that. And when you have that much effectiveness, you can, you know, fairly reliably provoke high ER units like Diane and lock them out for a whole nother turn. So Spectenny it burns there, it looks like, and now she's going to S3 and I think try to get rid of Basar. Crit him twice, you know, even though she had hit down, which was unfortunate for me. This made me a little nervous because my Ras is almost dead, and that Ravi still has a fair bit of life, and I do not have a ton of damage on my side. So I really need to survive here to be able to get off another skill 3 with my Last Rider Crow. Luckily my Ras has his skills back up, so I am able to use his S3, get defense buff on everyone, and also heal a bit on my Ras, so that helped a ton there. And you can see my Tywin is one turn away from getting to skill 3. His passive doing work. His kit is just so loaded, it's insane. So here I get to skill 3 with my Last Rider Crow, so this will take out the Fallen Cecilia at least. And also the Spectenny. So now it's just Ravi left. She's practically dead herself, so Ras is able to finish her off. So that's the first game.
Alright, let's do this.
Okay, so game 2 here. I'm going to stick with my Falcon Artillery pre-ban. It is going to feel weird not pre-banning ML Tywin, I have to say. Will take some time to get used to. So the opponent has the same idea I do, and also pre-bans Falcon Artillery. This time I get first pick. I take Fallen Cecilia for the reasons I mentioned last game. She's a generically strong, you know, early unit to take. Lots of damage mitigation, leaves you open. The opponent takes Spectre, Tenebria, and Elena, which is a strange combo. Usually you see Elena, you know, as an anti-pick to Faithless Lytica or Cleave and stuff, maybe against a lot of AoE heroes. And then Spectre Tenebria is a hero that's very vulnerable to AoE damage, so maybe that was their thought process. But taking her here early, I feel like leaves you open to get AoE'd out. I take Last Rider Crow. He gives me more damage mitigation and also some AoE reach to hit Spectenny. This might have been a mistake though, because Elena's passive is going to, you know, trigger when Last Rider Crow uses his S3. I guess that's the strategy my opponent was going for. I have to hit S10 somehow though, and assuming the draft, you know, goes my way, I could always ban the Elena. I take Alencia here because she gives defense buff for my team, which is really strong, and also because I want to take Ambitious Tywin, and she'll be my stripper for him. Please don't take that quote out of context. The opponent takes Apocalypse Ravi and Aras. Ravi, a really strong single target bruiser, so I think a good pick against Last Rider Crow. And then Adventurer Ras, which I was a little disappointed to see because I want to take Ambitious Tywin here for this showcase, and Aras gives immunity, you know, on his S2, which my whole line of thinking with this is that I want to be able to stun Spectre Tenebria. I take him anyways. Maybe not the best decision. And then I decide I probably want another AoE unit, you know, to be able to hit Spectenny. So I take Seaside Bologna. I thought about Arby as well, but I don't have a healer, so Arby might just go down too quickly. Either way, the opponent still has one last pick, that they could use to counter. So they take Rowana to counter my Seaside Bologna, so I ban her out because I don't think I can win, if I leave Rowana in. I don't have a super high damage team to kind of go over the top. So the opponent bans the Seaside Bologna. So we do assemble our ML Tywin Alencia combo. I get first turn with Fallen Cecilia. I could put up my skill 3, but it kind of feels like a waste because Adventurer Ras is next, and he can just use his skill 3, which does like very little damage, and get rid of the skill null. So I decided to provoke him and deny him getting defense buff for the turn. Now here I could, strip with Alencia and put up defense buff, but the opponent does not have any buffs to strip right now, so I feel like that's a bit of a waste, so I just go into Elena with the S1. I also did not want to push up Elena if she is on Magaraha's Tome and allow her to use Invincible before my Last Rider Crowd gets his damage going. I guess it doesn't really matter because her S2 is going to trigger and counter that. This game is also interesting because I got to see how effective Elena is at dealing with Last Rider Crow. So here there's no immunity. I decide to S1 on Tywin so that I can wait until I have souls to soul burn next go around. I don't really care if Elena puts up her effect resistance buff because he has enough effectiveness to easily, overcome that. So the opponent skill 3s into Tywin, but he has that Fallen Cecilia shield, so he's just fine. The opponent does go ahead and use the skill 3 from Elena here, which actually does decrease the cooldown on my Last Rider Crow by a turn, but now the opponent's totally invincible, so I'm just going to have to wait for them to turn cycle out of it, or until my Alencia goes and potentially strips it off. I hit into Ras here, he's the only target I can do damage to. So now it's Alencia's turn, and she has Mind's Eye to help mitigate that ER buff. So I go ahead and use her skill 3, hoping for some strips, and completely fail. So either unlucky or the opponent is running high ER on all of his units, which I don't anticipate. But now I have souls, so I can soul burn my Ambitious Tywin. And he lands like almost nothing as well, which was really frustrating. He does get the slow on Spectre Tenebria, so that's nice, I guess. But that's kind of back-to-back skill 3s that totally whiffed. And really kills my momentum, or if I had any at all. So now I'm behind. I also don't have a healer, so I don't have a ton of sustain. I was really relying on Tywin landing his skill 3 there to mitigate the damage coming into my team.
I hope you're ready.
So the opponent starts attacking into Tywin. He is that high value target as I mentioned. And I just kind of keep chipping away. I do have Mind's Eye here on Alencia, so I will get, a couple attacks into Elena, who appears to be fairly squishy, low health. So I decided I'm going to switch over to Elena now and try to take her out.
Why don't you just surrender?
I'm a little worried though because I'm afraid that I'm going to get my Tywin low enough that Apocalypse Ravi can use her skill 3 and just bring back anybody that I kill. One thing I really do like about Tywin, though, is the fact that he is able to deny souls to the opponent to some degree. It prevents Spectre Tenebria from completely, taking away the battle. But the opponent is able to skill, or soul burn, sorry, with Ras. It's only 10 souls. You can't deny him everything, and maybe if you have Elbrus, like I talked about, you would, get to counter more. But it really looks like Tywin is going down here. The opponent gets a lucky dual attack off of Elena there, and I get, I guess, a little bit of luck myself since my Holy Sacrifice procced, even though it's not 100%. Elena continues to counter every time I hit her and has Celestine, so I'm a little tilted right now. I feel like RNG is conspiring against me. Elena does seem squishy though, so I'm fairly optimistic I can get her down. I just have one more turn to rotate through Crow, and then I can start soul burning him also. Although I only have this one for Tywin, I decided just to hit Elena there to remove some souls and try to deny that soul burn. Or sorry, Tenny, because she has immunity now. This is kind of what I was worried about with Adventurer Ross, preventing me from stunning Spectre Tenebria.
I hope you're ready.
So that might have been a mistake on my opponent, killing off the Cecilia there, because now there's not a target that is, 100% guaranteed he can kill with Ravi on the skill 3, because now I'm going to be able to soul burn on my Last Rider Crow and take out the Elena. And all 3 of my heroes are, at least have some amount of health to them. The Fallen Cecilia was about to, fall over though. So the opponent decides to hold off, probably for another cycle, on a Ravi's skill 3. I think that was probably a mistake. Even if they didn't res Elena, they could have severely damaged one of my units at the very least, and honestly might have been able to take out Tywin. Alencia does a huge roar and wipes out a couple other units, and now I'm able to burn with Tywin, and I'm just praying that this stuns, and it does. So now Ravi is stunned and I can whittle her down, and she's slow, with slow down on her as well, so I'm just able to lap and come back around and just completely abuse her. You can see how powerful speed down is. How many turns my units are taking compared to Ravi. It's really disgusting. Ravi does get a counterattack here. And now my Tywin is back again. So you can see that Tywin is back ready to stun her, and she hasn't even dropped off the other slow debuff. She does resist the stun though, and counterattacks again into Tywin. So I get tilted a little bit more. So I really have to just pray here that she doesn't get to take a turn, because if she does, she's definitely going to be able to kill somebody. Counters again, so I'm super tilted, but luckily my Last Rider Crow is off cooldown, so he's able to skill 3, and I am able to eke out the win. So thanks for watching, that's it for now.